From time to time, people ask me a lot of business questions about my business, which I'm always more than happy to talk about here on the YouTube channel. And it's often why I make a video rather than simply reply, because if I replied to one person and the next person had the same questions, well, I like to share with the class here. Now, a little bit of background. If you're first time here at this channel, I have owned my IT services company since I left the corporate world in 2003. I did not go to college. I have an entire video about that where I talk about whether or not you should go to college, and I think education is supremely important. If you don't feel like watching it, that's kind of the gist of it. Whether you go to college or self-study, education is the key, in my opinion, to a lot of success. So I'm here answering some of these questions that I was sent, and I thought they were questions that not only have an interest in the person who sent them to me, but a lot of other people may be interested as well. If you're in the process of starting a business, you own a business, these are good questions about business. This is well thought out. So I'm going to quickly run through and answer some of these questions to as best as I can. First question, what sales tactics worked for you when you first got out there? That's a harder one to answer. And the reason for that is I started in 2003. So in 2003, much different than 2018. But one thing is still the same, and one thing's really important for the B2B side of the business, which is going to be relationship building with other companies. Being out there and friendly, it's not easy at all. I'm more of an introverted person, but I've learned back when I worked in corporate before my business to be more extroverted, to connect with people. It's still not easy at all for me. It's not my default position is generally behind a keyboard talking to people online, not in person. So different things I join, like the Chamber of Commerce and going to business events. And first off, and I've talked about this maybe throughout my videos here and there, don't talk tech. Talk about a solution you can provide and how it may help their business. That takes a lot more thought on your part, but that's how you can get a sale. So that for the B2B side, that helped a lot. For the retail side of my business, now it's Facebook advertising when we do it. It's kind of hit and miss. We don't really push the retail store, but it's been around for a long time. We have over 6,500 clients in there, somewhere around there. And so it just kind of, a lot of people know us, so we really don't advertise as much for the retail, but we still do to an extent. It still leads us to a lot of business sales, but the being personal for the B2B side. 2, what was the hardest part in the beginning aside from initial startup? Not knowing what you're supposed to do and having to develop all that structure is probably a little bit difficult. I mean, granted, you're like, hey, I made some money with a project I could sleep in on Thursday or Friday or whatever day because you feel caught up. I never feel that way because I'm highly driven and I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, even on vacation, because I'm hyper. I don't sleep a lot. I'm like motivated to the next project a lot. So not necessarily motivated to money. That's different than motivated to the next project. So it was not as hard in that aspect, but I know a lot of other business owners struggle with, what do I do now? I feel like I should be doing something. If you feel like you should do something in cold calling and marketing, that's probably something. So always find something for yourself to do that keeps you motivated, keeps you going. So that's the initial startup. Another thing about just the in general initial startup, and I had thought about this and planned this, and maybe you should too, you got to plan on not making money for a while. Depending on the type of business you're starting with IT, you're going to have to spend a lot of money on your personal expenses. I had a wife and kids, so I had saved up, packed away money, and put money aside. So even though there wasn't a whole ton of projects at the beginning, which we got lucky and got some good ones, it was, you make sure you have some reserve in the bank. Don't live check to check, because you're going to have a hard time, because if someone doesn't pay or some little hiccup in the beginning, you find yourself in a very desperate situation and you don't want to be there. Has work-life balance leveled off to a point that you can take time off? Kind of. I've always could, but don't want to, I guess would probably be the better description. Like I said about me being highly focused, motivated, working on this project, this is a passion for what I love doing. So time off feels like time away from what I love, versus some people like, oh, I just can't wait to sit somewhere at a beach or something. I mean, time off's important. Tech burnout's a real thing. So time off is important. I have taken my family places. I have certainly over the years taken trips and things like that. I just went to Washington with the kids. I like historic things. I did that a couple weeks ago. So yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, right now I just got back from Sand Bear Dunes in northern Michigan. I just spent the weekend up there. So yeah, I can take vacation. I can take time off in the business. That's an important goal to work towards from the beginning, which is systemizing everything. Because if the business completely relies on you, and I see so many business owners, they want to be the center of the world of the business. I do not. Therefore, it limits your growth. It makes it very stressful because there's no way for you to take time off because the entire system revolves around you. I came from a corporate world where we specifically trained each manager to have control over their department so everything didn't roll uphill, only the exceptions, managing by exception. So that same thought process when I started my business was in place of putting systems in place that people could follow, and only when something occurred that just didn't fit the system would they roll it up to me, to which you think, okay, how could I modify the system so they don't? So you want to make the business and be building it from the beginning to work without you. How did you figure out how to price your services? Was there a metric you set up, or did you just bill by time? That's a tricky one, and still is right now. Still a question I think almost every business owner has is you want to keep adjusting your prices, adjusting the services you offer. You're going to probably do the best, I'm not going to say margin, but you're going to do really well when you can come up with a fixed price for things, because no one likes to say, well, it's this much an hour and I don't know how long it's going to take. That doesn't sell well for businesses because they want predictable costs. You want a predictable income. Now, that's going to take some guesswork on your part. How long does it take me to set up a firewall? These are really relevant questions. I know exactly how long it takes me to set this up. How long does it take you to set this up is what you have to determine. So I set fixed prices to set these things up and get these things going. Or when it's nebulous, as I call it, just kind of I need work done, but I can't define the scope, then I have to charge by hour because you're just setting the time of I want your time. Well, my time is very expensive, so you got to set that very high. If you say, can you set up a VPN? Well, that's like a walk in the park for me. So yeah, I can set up a VPN on that firewall and I can give you a lower price. And this is how you can negotiate with your clients as well. You can quote those services because if there's things you are skilled in and are good at, then great, you can move right along and do it. But if they're not, you have to kind of work on those. So setting the prices, also look at your market and what that market's charging. That's call the competition. Oddly enough, it works. This is a thing that a lot of people don't stop and think about. I think one of the funniest little anecdotes I heard about this was at a convention. It was for a pool services company. A friend was talking about this, and they said, everyone, do you publish your prices and do you do it to hide it from your competition? Everyone in the room raises their hand and says, oh yeah, we don't publish our prices to hide it from the competition. And then the next question, of course, is, how many of you know your competitors' prices? And pretty much the entire room raised their hand again. A lot of it, we publish what we can. The only reason we don't always put everything in a website is because we've had people, as we've raised prices over the years, and they find some old copy because it got copied into somewhere that said our rate was this, like sales specials, things like that. So we don't publish as much on the web anymore, but it's not a big deal if you do publish on it. We tell people check the current. We've had people bring printed copies of like a special that had an expiration date, but yeah, whatever. That's mostly for the retail. For the business side, it's hard to publish prices because it's a custom solution frequently, so it's not like there's a fixed price in, this is how much it is all the time, unless it's something, commoditized, like just setting up a VPN, but then comes into how many locations do you have? How many workstations do you have? So pricing still always a challenge. Always be thinking about it. Always make sure you're making good margin on it. There's my tips for it. What were the significant external roadblock bumps that you had to overcome to get where you are today? Hiring people is always hard. A lot of people ask, how do I hire my first person? That was a little bit maybe less difficult for me, but that's because of that process I talked about. I've always had processes in place. And once you have a process in place, you can fit a person to that process. Now, banking on saving up money and things like that are important because I have to make payroll every Friday. That's when our payday is here. So I always make sure there's plenty of money in the bank, and I have had to do that for a long time. But because I came from a systems-oriented background of process procedure when I worked in corporate, that was important. But having someone to handle that payroll, as in an HR/accounting company that I externally have doing all of the paperwork stuff, because understanding a lot of the paperwork can be a very difficult and challenge, and I recommend having an accountant for that, making sure you're filing all the proper government paperwork for whichever jurisdiction you're in. Here in the USA, there's federal taxes, state taxes, and a bunch of other little BS stuff that has to be paid. I say BS stuff because it just aggravates you when you're looking at all of it. And I'm like, I'm here. How much is it? And I'll just write one big check and not think about the details. It's good to chat with your accountant, but yeah, So one roadblock, definitely, it's worth the money to have an accountant. The other roadblock is just finding the right people. It's still a very, very difficult challenge. I've gone through people. They aren't all the same people that when I started. I've had some here since I started, but others are not. I rotated them in and out and fired people. You have to know when to do that. It's business, not personal. You've probably heard that phrase, just before they kill someone, but it's also something you have to think about when you fire someone. Never killed anyone, but I have fired a few people over the years. You have to be hyper vigilant about things like that. If they are not aligned with your values, or they screw around, or just aren't good for the customer and aren't a good experience, fire them. It may be a little bit tough. You may personally like them, especially in a small business. It's only a few of us. I can't just delegate it out a few steps going, hey, when that person comes in, fire them. It's me firing them. So that's still a challenge. It happens. Same with hiring. It's like the same thing. You got to bring them in and roll them into your trust system, and hopefully they're not going to screw you over. Is your business scalable, or have you ever thought about that? I apologize, this one, I'm not trying to come off as an asshole. I just didn't know how to ask. Scalability is a really good question. In IT, if you're looking for the ultimate scalable business is going to build to $1 billion, don't start this one. Not an IT services business. Services companies in general are really hard to scale. I've thought about franchising. I've actually went through the Goldman Sachs Small Business Program. I've talked about that before on my channel. You can look it up. It's called the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. And I worked with a team of people there. We even looked at all the challenges of scaling this business, and there's just a lot of roadblocks. Every IT guy I know used to work for another IT guy, and they broke off from them and started their own because they thought they could do it better. That is just how this industry works. So there's not a lot of value. I maybe I'm wrong, but the conclusion I've really come to, it's hard to really provide a lot of structure and value. Now, I have thought about taking the structure we've created and selling it, but selling it on a franchise model is really hard, because at some point they go, oh, you signed up with all the same tools I could sign up with. Why should I give you a few percent? Because so much of it's B2B, meeting the person, that being part of a larger conglomerate doesn't necessarily sell it. And then me taking a percentage off the type means you're going to give me that part of your margin, and you're going to go, what value am I getting for that margin? Now, when you look at some of the restaurant businesses where they commoditize everything down, like the McDonald's franchise model, and everything's become a very simple kit, and they just need some people to help manage and run the business, that's different. It's easy. It's the same burger everywhere across America. IT, very custom solution, requires a high amount of skill and talent. It's hard to commoditize it down so I can find a minimum wage person to fix IT. It doesn't work as well like that, so it doesn't seem to fit the franchise model as well. Doesn't mean I haven't thought about putting together like a playbook or a business kit, like, hey, here's how you get started. I'm actually thinking about some of those ideas so I can help people out, choosing all the software and stack that goes into it. But the reality is, it's not a secret. You can go to a lot of places, and these questions pop up all the time. Which software should I use for RMM? I want to get in the MSP. Which antivirus platform should I settle on? There's a lot of good ones out there. We settle on so you don't have to go digging. We settled on the whole SolarWinds platform. We're really happy with it. It works. We use our backup, their RMM tool. We have a wiki for our internal documentation, ConnectWise Control for remote management, and Invoice Ninja is how we do our invoicing, and KMy Money is my ledger software. So that's kind of the quick rundown of that. What would you have done differently? This is a tough one. What would I have done differently is hard, because I don't like just daydreaming about regrets. I mean, obviously, there's a few people I shouldn't have hired. Maybe there was a few jobs I probably should have said yes to because they were worth some money, but I was nervous about taking them on. I've grown my business very cautiously, so because of that, I was maybe not as risk taker, but the risk weighed out against the business. Maybe I could have made more money, but I don't know. You can't really play that out, because what if it went wrong? I've seen some of the deals that I passed on go wrong for others, and that sucks, because they can put you out of business. I've watched someone go out of business from going with a company that was doing $4 million a year, a great sales team and everything else. They made a few mistakes, did a few things, and whammo, they went bankrupt. It doesn't take much sometimes. Just because you see the big numbers, like, hey, this company's doing this much a year, depending how you manage your money and how much income you keep in the bank, and how much you keep on your balance sheet, you could be just a few screwed up large jobs away from going out of business. It really doesn't take much. A lot of my friends lost their businesses around that 2009 era. They were in the home building style of business, and the company declared bankruptcy. They're like, but you owe me $300,000. They're like, yeah, talk to the bankruptcy court. You're gonna get pennies on a dollar on that. they knew they were taking a big risk doing so much work with one company, and you have to think about that. So those are, I don't know, what would I have done differently? Maybe tried to make some money off those. I don't know, I'm kind of babbling now. The one thing I will say is I had a business partner for a little while. That was an awful experience. Choose your business partner like you would choose a marriage partner. But slight twist on that, you never choose a business partner out of love. Choose one out of respect, because then there's no emotion involved. If you respect that person, you can probably find a business partner you do well with. If there's some like, hey man, this is cool, let's run a business together because we're good friends, you're probably more likely to have a problem. You can look historically through any business partnership, and you'll find that people who just are like-minded but not necessarily close best buds, we hang out friends, may do better because there's a mutual respect they have for each other. And I'm kind of speculating here. I had a bad experience with a business partner, embezzled money, turned into a mess. Now, I've always owned Lawrence Technology since 2003, but from 2004 to 2006, I had another company called Suburban Electronics, which was a retail venture where we did TV and electronics repair. The partner was just a mess, and so that's definitely, if I had to go back and turn that part off, maybe I did learn a lot, but it was a mess. What wouldn't you do differently? This is the last question, and this one goes back to a couple things. One, the accountant, and I highly recommend having someone who can navigate all the paperwork and have a trust relationship with, where they navigate the paperwork, make sure my taxes are paid, make sure I'm following whatever rules, and because I'm paying them a monthly service fee for those things, they also are not a bad person because they're looking at my financials to go, hey, what about this or what about this? And they talk about strategy with them. So definitely a good accountant, going to put that high up on my list of things that definitely to do. Read a lot of business books. I think I have a list on my thomaslawrence.com with some of the podcasts I read. I think I left some business books there. I'll run off just a couple off the top of my head. Alexis Ohanian's Without Their Permission was a great book. Jay Samit, Disrupt You. Lots of ideas in that book. Those two pop in my head. Screw Business as Usual by Richard Branson. I thought that one was had some clever ideas in it. Read a lot, interact with people a lot. I still try to reach out. You'll be surprised how many people are willing to help you. Other businesses are willing to help. I don't want to see you fail. That's probably the reason I'm even doing any of these videos. I hate the mentality of my success means your failure, even if you're a competitor in my market. That's not exactly how it works. There's enough business that more than one computer store, more than one IT services company can be in my area, because there's actually very few in my area, but there are more than one. And as long as they're doing things in an honest goodness way, not trying to shyster people, not trying to, or however you want to phrase it, not trying to screw people over, then great. I welcome the competition, because if you can just take all my videos and do what I do and do it better than me, awesome, you're better than me. I don't really worry about that. So definitely reaching out and being peers in peer groups or anything like that. Now, joining peer groups is really hard. I've not found a lot of like-minded business people. That's kind of hard to find. There's a few, and they're not even in my industry that I kind of BS with from time to time, because that does help. So those are the questions. I don't mind doing this once in a while. If I get a good list of questions, I'll throw them together and do some Q&A here. It's hard to do it on typing in real time, because then it becomes this long pauses and things like that. I don't mind being asked on Vlog Thursday either. That's my off the cuff, where I will do things like that. But this hopefully was helpful. Hopefully offers you some insight if you're thinking about starting an IT services company. It's been a fun venture. Like I said, this is my 15th year in business. I'm enjoying it. It's been a good time. Hopefully, if you're interested in starting this business, have at it. Think about the risk. Don't bankrupt yourself. Be very honest and cross your fingers that it all works, because in the end, the hardest part I'm going to tell you right now about this entire thing is luck has a lot to do with it. You have to be ready when the luck comes. You have to be getting yourself out there in a place where luck might happen, going to these business events. But you can be like, Tom, I went to 100 business events and I got no business. Maybe no one was standing there at the right time that needed your services. Sometimes we've gotten lucky and landed a large sale. Sometimes we've gone to the business events over and over again and just nothing really comes of it. Said hi to a couple of people and they used the other guy instead of me, and that happens. You have to accept that. So that's kind of luck of the draw. It's the worst part about it, that you rattle what you did wrong, but don't beat yourself over. Just go to the next one. Don't get discouraged. Thanks. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and click the thumbs up. Leave us some feedback below to let us know any details, what you like and didn't like as well, because we love hearing the feedback. Or if you just want to say thanks, leave a comment. If you want to be notified of new videos as they come out, go ahead and hit the subscribe and the bell icon. That lets YouTube know that you're interested in notifications. Hopefully they send them, as we've learned with YouTube. Anyways, if you want to contract us for consulting services, you go ahead and hit lawrencesystems.com and you can reach out to us for all the projects that we can do and help you. We work with a lot of small businesses, IT companies, even some large companies, and you can farm different work out to us or just hire us as a consultant to help design your network. Also, if you want to help the channel in other ways, we have a Patreon. We have affiliate links. You'll find them in the description. You'll also find recommendations to other affiliate links and things you can sign up for on lawrencesystems.com. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.